So I'm here to do a book talk on the graphic novel Kindred. It's written by Octavia Butler. So the book starts out in present day, which is California, June of 1976. So the author reveals that it is the 26th birthday of our main character. The main character's name is Dana. And so that's where the book starts. So the author decides to let us in on a little physical characteristics about Dana. That she only has one arm. So she's lost an arm. We don't know how. We don't know why. She just decides to give up that piece of information. So the author shares that she lives with her husband, Kevin. Kevin is white. Dana is black. So it is an interracial relationship. And I think she does that for a reason, letting us know that. So the setting is they're in their apartment, their new apartment. They just moved in. And so the apartment is in Altadena, California. So they're unpacking. And Dana has done most of the unpacking, but she starts to get this weird sensation throughout her body. She begins getting really, really dizzy, and everything around her begins to fade. And so she gets this dizzy spell. Henceforth, this is the first transportation. So apparently, Dana has transported to 19th century states. She finds out later on that she is in Maryland. So when she transportates for the first time, the scene is she's by a little river or creek of some sort, and there is a little boy who is in the water, and he's having trouble staying afloat. She finds out that this little boy's name is Rufus. So, of course, it's her first instinct to try to help Rufus, so she gets in the water, tries to pull him out. At this point, he is unconscious, so like he's been struggling for a little while. So at this point, he's unconscious, and so she pulls him out onto the banks, and she resuscitates him and brings him back to life. At this point, the child's mother has entered the scene. She's yelling at Dana. She thinks that she's responsible for it. Dana is black, as I've said, and she's transportating to 19th century states in Maryland. So this is when slavery is going on, so obviously she's not met with the nicest manners. So the mother is now in the scene. The father then enters the scene. He has a gun pointed at Dana, because they believe that, Dana is responsible for this. Henceforth, Dana's life is in trouble. It's in danger. So she is transported back to present day June 1976 in her apartment. So back in her apartment, just a few minutes go by, maybe 10-15 minutes, and then she gets another dizzy spell. So at this point, she is now she was at the apartment, now she's back in 19th century Maryland. So when she gets back, Rufus is who she sees first. They're in his bedroom. He's a little older at this point. So he's a little older than he was a few minutes ago when she went to Maryland for the first time. So she begins to realize a little bit that whenever she comes back, each time she goes to Maryland, back in time, he gets a little older. So she's not going back to the same time. The years do change. So when she gets back, they're in Rufus's bedroom. Rufus has set his bedroom on fire. He set the drapes on fire because he is mad at his father. His father's name is Tom Whelan. Weylin. Whelan. And so he's mad because his father has sold a horse that he wanted super, super bad. And so he sold him, and now he's mad, so he's just going to set the house on fire. So she puts out the fire. She talks to Rufus, make sure he's okay, blah, 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 blah. She begins asking him some questions about, like, what is this place? Where am I? So he tells her that she's in Maryland at the Whelan Plantation. For some reason, she asks about Alice. Now, the book doesn't really go into how she knows to ask about Alice. I guess she asked about her, because she knows a little bit about her ancestry. I'm not really sure, but she does ask about Alice, and he does point her in the direction of Alice. So Alice and her family live in a cabin. She then goes to the cabin, introduces herself to Alice and her family. She's invited to stay with them. She does stay with them for a little bit, like minute-wise. Then she is trying to find Alice's blanket, so she leaves the cabin to find the blanket, and a patrolman spots her, so he begins to chase her. So once again, her life is in trouble. So then she is transported back to present day, June 1976, in her apartment. So when she was there, she's beginning to realize what she's there to do and why she's getting sent. So she realized that she's there to protect Rufus, because she realizes that she only gets sent back when he is in trouble. The first time he was drowning, the second time he was setting fire to his house. So she realizes that she's there when he gets in trouble. She also realizes that she's there to protect him, so that him and Alice can start her family lineage. So she's there to protect Rufus and Alice, and somehow get them to create her bloodline. So at this point, she was getting chased by the patrolman, so now she is back home. So when she gets back home, Kevin knows about her Kevin's her husband. He knows about her transportations, and he's helping her heal her wounds, because she's been getting hurt by being chased and whatnot. Now, for some reason, though, it doesn't harp on his reaction to how she's being transported. Instead, it kind of wants to go ahead and imply that he is more interested in her ability to do this more than skeptical. But months pass. She's doing fine. Months have passed. She's in the present day. Boom, she gets another dizzy spell. So whenever she gets a dizzy spell, you know what happens. She is sent back to Maryland. This time, Kevin grabs onto her while she's having this dizzy spell. So they're both sent back to Maryland. So it's not just Dana this time. It's Dana and Kevin, her husband. So when they're sent back, they get to the scene. Rufus he's on the ground crying. He's got a broken foot. He's fell from a tree. So there you go. She gets sent back when he's in trouble, when he's been hurt, when she's supposed to protect him. At this point, his father has come into the scene. Kevin and Dana are there. Kevin has to pose as Dana's owner, basically. He's white, so he has to pose as her owner, so that they don't figure out that they're married in present day. So anyway, they're welcomed into the plantation. Dana and Kevin are welcomed onto the plantation. They're given jobs. And so Dana begins to educate Rufus. She begins teaching him how to read and write and all that good stuff. But also she begins teaching the slave children, which we all know back in slavery time, that was a big no-no. So Tom Whelan, who was Rufus's father, he finds out. He gets really, really mad at her. And he begins to beat her. Her life is in trouble. She starts to get dizzy. She's sent back to the present. Now, this time, Kevin did not make it to her in time to get sent back with her. So Dana is sent back to the present alone. Kevin is still in 19th century Maryland. That is not okay. So she's alone in 1976. So she's at her apartment. Some time has gone by. Boom, she gets that dizzy spell. So this time when she gets there, she is sent there and she gets put in a very violent scene when she gets there. At this time, Rufus is a young adult. So basically, back in that time at 20, you're considered a man. You're supposed to have kids. You're supposed to have a wife. You're supposed to maybe have a plantation if you're rich enough. And then some slaves, if you can do it. So that's by 20. So young adult, I'm going to go ahead and say that's about 16, 17. That's still a young adult that's still considered a young adult in our day and age. But I'm going to go ahead and say he was 17. It doesn't really give a number, it just says a young adult. So at this time, he's a young adult. Dana is sent back, and she ends up in the scene of violence between Rufus and Isaac. So Isaac is Alice's husband. They are fighting. Dana persuades and convinces Isaac not to kill Rufus. They're mad at each other. So Dana kind of stops the fight. She then takes Rufus into the house to care for his wounds. At which point, Alice and Isaac have had enough. They're done. They're over it. They want to run away. So they try to run away. When she gets back, she does realize that Kevin is not there. Kevin has left the plantation, and he is nowhere to be found. He's not in the area at all. So Dana is asking Rufus to send a letter out letting him know that she is back. He says, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do that. So he actually doesn't send the letter. That's the first red flag. He doesn't send the letter when he said he was going to. Luckily for Dana, Tom, Rufus's father, does send a letter. She doesn't ask him to. He just does it, which is very fortunate. So Alice and Alice and Isaac are found, so they don't escape, but Alice is punished for helping Isaac try to escape. Therefore, she's made a slave. When she is made a slave, Rufus buys her. So Dana wants to leave at this point. She's like, well, Kevin isn't here. Doesn't really look like you're in trouble. I'm out. Peace. So she tries to run away. You know what happens when she tries to run away. What always happens when they try to run away. So she doesn't get very far. The next day, though, Kevin does return. Yay. So Kevin returns. She's been thinking about leaving again. So when Kevin returns, she's like, let's do this. They're out. So they try to leave. You know what happens. They end up back in the 1970s in present day, though. At that time, they were there for a couple of months. So that was, which could have been like a day maybe. In present time, we don't really know. So at this point, they've been back in the 1970s for a while. Boom, she gets that dizzy spell. You know what happens. So when she gets there, Rufus is sick. His father, Tom, doesn't really want to call a doctor for some reason. But Dana nurses him back to health. That's what she's supposed to do. She's supposed to protect him. But meanwhile, Rufus's father, Tom, dies. And Dana can't save him. Therefore, Rufus blames Dana for his father's death. Which is not good. So, anyway, some time passes. There's a little get-together of slaves. Dana is black, so she fits in with slaves. And she sees that... Rufus sees that there is a... okay. Yeah, okay. Rufus sees that there is a slave who is flirting with Dana. So he doesn't like it. So he sells a slave that was flirting with Dana out of spite. Dana is mad about it, so she tries to self-harm herself to get home. She succeeds. She gets home. When she gets home, her and Kevin have a fight because Kevin is now jealous of the relationship Dana and Rufus has. She thinks that's ridiculous. Oddly enough, Alice is also jealous of Dana and Rufus's relationship. Dana is treated a lot better than Alice is. Alice is treated very poorly for Rufus to love her and want kids with her or whatever. So when Isaac is gone, which was Alice's husband, he's gone. So Alice is now there by herself. Rufus has been trying to get Dana to convince Alice to fall in love with him so that they can have kids. So she's trying to convince Alice to fall in love with this guy. Obviously, it's going to be really, really hard because Alice doesn't like him. She actually kind of despises him at this point. But they get there, so they figure out that their partners or whatever are jealous of their relationship. So then, at this time, she gets back. Alice has had 2 children by Rufus now, so obviously a lot of time has passed. But honestly, while they were in present day, Kevin and Dana had been talking about Maryland a lot, had been talking about the past. So Dana finds out that when Kevin was left in Maryland, he was actually trapped there for 5 years. So the time difference is a very, very essential thing in the book. It was a couple of it was maybe a month to Dana. It was 5 years to Kevin. So it's a big difference. So anyway, so this Rufus is getting controlling now, as you can tell. That was the second red flag, that he sold a slave who he saw was flirting with Dana. So that's the second red flag. Anyway, she gets mad about it. She self-harms herself and is transported back home. Some time goes by. She's transported back to Maryland. It's a lot of transporting in this book, but it's not hard to keep up with, though. She transports back. At this point, Rufus is healthy, so he knows why she gets transported back. He doesn't understand why she's there because he's healthy. So he's like, I'm healthy. Why'd you come back? Turns out that Alice has ran off. She has ran off because she is guilt-ridden. Because Rufus has told her that he has sold their 2 children together. Now, as I said, they had 2 children together, so Dana has succeeded in continuing her line, her family lineage. That was her mission. That was what she was supposed to do. So Rufus has told Alice that he sold their children. Obviously, Alice doesn't like that, and she's super, super guilt-ridden, so she runs off. But really, she runs off for no reason because he didn't really sell their kids. He just told her that to try to deter her from running away. So then, while Alice is gone, because she thinks that her children were sold, she's gone. So now Dana's there by herself. So now that Alice is out of the picture, Rufus is really, really, really attached to Dana, and it's becoming kind of weird. He becomes really controlling because now he wants her to himself, basically. It doesn't really say Kevin is back in Maryland with her at this point. I don't think he is. But he becomes really attached to Dana, and he wants her to stay with him. He understands that she is not from that time. He understands why she's sent there. But he becomes attached to her and wants her to stay with him. They end up fighting about it, like physically fighting, and they end up in the attic. So they're fighting. Rufus is becoming controlling. He's trying to push himself onto her. So then they begin to fight. Dana does the only thing she thinks she can do. She kills him. At the point where she kills him, he's holding on to her arm. When he's holding on to her arm, she is being transported back to present time. So he's holding on to her arm. He can't come to present time, and he's holding on to her arm. So there's some friction there. Anyway, she does get back to the present time. But this lovely arm is gone. So that's how her arm got gone. So at this point, we are now at the beginning of the book when the author has told us it is her 26th birthday, and she does not have this arm. So whenever they get back, Rufus is gone now, so there's no need for Alice is gone also, so there's no need for her to be transported back. So they don't get transported to Maryland anymore. Her and Kevin are now readjusting to life. They actually began to like the life in the 1800s, which is really, really weird for me to comprehend. I don't understand how you guys could comprehend that life is better for you in the 1800s than it is in the 1970s, especially being an interracial relationship. And you can't even be in a relationship in this 19th century time. But okay, whatever. So anyway, they're transported. They're in present time, and they're trying to get it readjusted to modern life. Dana's having some problems healing, so she's got to stay low. She's got to stay, low stress for a while as her arm heals. Her arm finally does heal, though. She gets back okay. They begin going through some news articles from that time, from the 19th century Maryland. They begin to realize that there was a cover-up. So Dana killed Rufus, but in the news articles it says that he died in a fire. So what happened was somebody, we don't know who, has set the entire plantation on fire after Dana got back home after she killed Rufus. So somebody covered up her killing Rufus by setting the entire plantation on fire. So that is what Rufus's cause of death is, the fire. That's how he died. He died in the fire. And then the story just ends with them readjusting to modern life. The book was actually really good. I liked it. That was my first time reading a graphic novel, so it's kind of in the format of a comic book. And the storyline was nice. I did like the story a lot. Once I realized what her mission was, what she was supposed to be doing. I have an interest in genealogy, so once I figured out what she was supposed to be doing, that really sparked my interest. Let alone her going back into history. That also sparked my interest. So the book was really good. I would recommend it. It was a very good book. The storyline itself is good. It's great. It is an adaptation, so it was a novel. I read the graphic novel adaptation of it, but it's a very good book. And that was my book talk on Kindred by Octavia Butler. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.